Yeah. Okay, guys. Good afternoon. Welcome to our weight loss webinar. And my name is Oscar Puig. Forgot to add it right there on to the start of the webinar. This is a little bit of my bio. A degree in food science, basically almost like an RD program based here in Mexico. A little bit of IFM, metabolic typing, and metametrics type of seminars. A little bit also of what is, in this case, ACAM. More onto what is clinical applications of lab testing that we do down here at Sanoviv. We're going to start with our webinar, and I'm going to ask you guys to hold your questions until the end of our webinar. I'm going to give you about 10 minutes of Q&A, so you guys can ask all the questions that you want based on what you want to know. Now, what are we going to cover? Main causes of basically where we are now today. We're going to cover a lot of what is obesity and what is overweight also. Why it is important, also understanding the inability to lose weight, what does it really take to lose weight, and just helpful hints that are going to actually cross through while we're actually talking. I call them quick tips for you guys, and we'll just go through that. Now, what causes overweight and obesity? Everybody knows, and in this case, that lack of energy or balance of energy, really how much food you actually process into your body and how much you actually burn is one of the main causes. Inactive lifestyle, environment, in this case POPs and xenoestrogens, genes and family history, health conditions like hypothyroidism, Cushing's, in this case polycystic ovarian syndrome also that causes imbalance with hormones, and in this case also medicine like corticosteroids, antidepressants, and seizure medication also. Emotional factors, craving specifically. Last webinar I gave, I explained a little bit about wheat and how it's actually very addicting, depending on the chemical reaction that you have in your brain. This gluteomorphine type of molecule is not only in wheat only, it's also in dairy, which is called caseomorphine, and it actually causes a little bit more of a craving than normal. Now, sugar curves also cause cravings, specifically this depending on the amount of carbohydrates that you eat. Now, aging is also something that is common to actually increase fat mass. Now, after the 35-year of age mark, we start to actually deplete our muscle mass and actually increase a little bit of your fat percentage. We're going to see that in a moment. And lack of sleep, imbalance in cortisol, leptin, and ghrelin, in this case also hormones, can cause you actually to gain weight. So if in this case you guys don't sleep correctly, you're going to be in trouble. Now, research shows that lack of sleep actually increases the risk of obesity. Like an example, one of the studies on teenagers showed that with each hour of lost sleep, the odds of becoming obese went up. Lack of sleep increased the risk of obesity in other age groups, as well as people who slept fewer hours as also seem to prefer eating foods that are higher in calories and carbohydrates, which can lead to overeating, weight gain, and obesity, right? Sleep helps also maintain a healthy balance of hormones that we just really talked about, cortisol, leptin, and ghrelin. Now, where are we now? Obesity has actually doubled since the 1980s, and I really kind of relate this with introduction of new foods that we're going to talk about in a couple of seconds. In 2008, more than 1.4 billion adults, 20 and older, were overweight, and of these, over 200 million men and nearly 300 million women were obese, which is pretty much a large number. Now, where are we going? 65% of the world population live in countries where overweight and obesity kills more people than underweight. So this means that in reality, lack of food is actually less impacting that overeating. Overeating is actually exactly the same thing as lack of food, because overeating, and specifically bad quality food, means that you're not really getting the good nutrients that you're supposed to get through, in this case, calories, right? So it's not really what how much you actually put in and how much you put out. It's what type of foods and what does that food actually give you that is going to actually represent your body and the whole state of your body. More than 4 million children under the age of 5 were overweight in 2011. Now, I can tell you that down here in Mexico, specifically down in the peninsula, not so far away from us, we live in one of the cities. It's actually the highest obesity rates for children under the age of 10, which is Tijuana. Now, 35% of adults aged 20 and over were overweight in 2008, and 11% were obese. Now, as we saw, now obesity in this case is preventable. It's very preventable depending on what we actually apply onto our body. We talked about specifically what was in this case genes, inactive lifestyle, lack of energy balance, how much goes in, how much goes out, your environment, your genes like express health conditions. Now also, medicines that you take, emotional factors, age, and lack of sleep, some of them are actually controllable, right? So it is preventable depending on what you have as a lifestyle. Now, the first quick tip that we're going to talk about is, in this case, resveratrol. It's actually being called an anti-aging compound, as past studies have demonstrated its ability to mimic the health benefits of a low-calorie or restricted diet, in this case. In healthy obese men, resveratrol supplementation was shown to reduce large adipose cell size in number while improving lipid metabolism. Now, everybody knows that resveratrol is naturally found in wine. This doesn't mean, guys, that you guys can go and drink a lot of glasses of wine. Now, very minimal amounts of wine in this case, like a fourth to almost maybe half a glass of wine can be effective. We recommend normally about maybe once or twice a week in this case if you wish to enjoy wine. Now, obesity is present in the world, and specifically in the U.S. and Mexico. Mexico specifically was number 1, but now we're actually bumped down onto number 2 with the USA being 34% obese, and in this case Mexico 29.5%. Now, alongside is New Zealand, Chile, Australia, the UK, and Canada. After that, Ireland, Greece, Spain, Germany, Portugal, Israel, France, and Italy, and Japan. Now, I can correlate now what's in this case a comparison between U.S. and Mexico, and also what is in this case one of the many causes of obesity. And one of the many causes is really what I expressed on how much calories go in, how much calories go out through your body. Now, what are the consequences of obesity and being overweight? Number 1, coronary heart disease, cancer, hypertension, dyslipidemia, strokes, liver and gallbladder diseases, sleep apnea and breathing problems, osteoarthritis, and gynecological problems. And now you see diabetes right there in red, right? We're going to go into diabetes a little bit more. And what are the causes of diabetes? Obesity, nutrient deficiencies, lack of exercise, saturated fat, refined diets, overeating, environmental toxins, and hormone imbalances. Now, hormone imbalances, we're going to go a little bit more into onto that so you guys can understand what is one of the main causes of gaining weight, in this case, even though that you actually eat a, in quotes, now, all so-called healthy diets. Now, nutrient deficiencies, like I said, even though that you guys are consuming, in this case, good quality food, sometimes your body requires certain extra energies, and your body can actually compensate from other areas, causing a nutrient deficiency. So in this case, your body needs to have a balanced diet depending on what is your lifestyle. Now, the level of stress that you actually have. Now, where are we now? Now, 2000, sorry, there were 250 million worldwide diabetics in 2000. 2012, there are 371 million. Over 50% of Americans will be diabetic by 2050 at current rate, 2050. Now, the interesting thing I found was that the chart from 2000 showed that 2025 prediction to be 380 million worldwide. So by 2012, we have already almost made it to the 2025 projection. This shows that rapid rate of increase in the condition. So we've actually duplicated the amount of, in this case, diabetes. Now, does sugar really have to do anything with this? I would say yes. Now, 156 pounds, in this case, of it, that's how much added sugar Americans consume each year on a per capita basis, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Imagine it's 31 5-pound bags for each of us. And then we have a little picture right there of 31 bags of 5 pounds of sugar. Imagine eating that a whole year. No? Now, a big change, for example, is that National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, they found that during 2007 and 2010, U.S. adults on average consumed 11.3% of their total daily calories from fast food, such as pizza, burgers bought in chain restaurants. This compares with 12.8% for 2003-2006. So really, let's kind of go on to that and find out the truth of this result. Yes, it really dropped more than 1% in this case. But if we take it to the average amount of calories that one is supposed to consume, which is 2,000 calories, and we take out the percentage of that, in 2007 and 2010, it only equaled to, in this case, 220 kilocalories, okay, on a daily basis. In 2003 to 2006, 256 calories. So the real change was that they only dropped 36 calories. Not so big, right, guys? That's half an apple. Half an apple that they dropped. Now, we see a common pyramid that's actually based to a lot of agencies around the world, which is my pyramid. And they recommend a consumption of 6 ounces per day of grains, which equals to, in this case, 1 ounce equals to 1 slice of bread or half a cup of grains. 2 cups of fruit per day, which equal to 2 portions of fruit a day. Vegetables, 2.5 cups per day. Milk, 3 cups per day. And meats and beans, 5.5 ounces per day. Now, that's a necessary change that we have to actually do. If, in this case, we've duplicated the amount of people that are diabetic since 2008, right? And the projection to 2025, we already actually are there. So we have to actually be careful with consumption of grains and fruits, specifically those carbohydrates that would actually provide a little bit more sugar onto our diets. Now, the result of this, 1 in 4 Canadians are now diabetic, so 90% of them have type 2 diabetes, the non-insulin dependent type of diabetes. 1 in 3 born in the U.S. will be diabetic. Now, so in this case, going to the pyramid back again, do you think it's actually producing any result at all? Quick tip. Caffeine in response to a meal is known to reduce the rise of leptin and insulin. It also reduces fat deposits in the liver and acts as a stimulant to the liver, helping the liver factory to be more efficient to process large-size meals. Now, with coffee, I do have to be a little bit specific. Now, you guys are not just going to go get any cup of coffee. The preferred thing would be that you guys grind your own coffee beans, preferably organic, and then you do your own coffee yourself and a little bit of a French press. That would be the type of coffee I would recommend. Now, if in this case you do like coffee. Now, if you guys do have any other symptom like hypertension, chronic fatigue, anything involved in this case you feeling not 100%, I would recommend that you refrain from consuming coffee. Okay? Now, what is weight loss? Reduction of total body mass due to a mean loss of fluid, body fat, or adipose tissue, and or lean mass, namely bone mineral deposits, muscle, tendon, and other connective tissues. So in reality, when we lose weight, what are we losing? Are we losing water? Are we losing, in this case, fat percentage, or are we losing muscle mass? Right? We see all these ads out on TV promoting 20 pounds per week, right? Or 10 pounds, 20 pounds loss per week. How much of that is really fat mass? And we're going to go into that. Now, how do we define obesity and overweight? We have that BMI marker right there, right? Which is an interesting marker that a lot of agencies use for categorizing health in both sexes, males and females. Now, here at Sanoviv, we don't really go through the BMI. Now, we really go through fat percentage, and we're going to look into that in a moment. And I'm going to give you a really good example about this and how this can actually be wrong. This equation, which is basically a mathematical equation, is really based on your total height and weight, which doesn't really measure bone density or, in this case, amount of muscle mass that one has. We have this, an example, which is the rating that would qualify anybody to be obese or overweight. And I want you to remember this. If in this case you are 18.5 or below, you're underweight, malnourished. If in this case you're between 18.5 and 24.9, you're in a normal weight, right? You're in, quote, healthy via the BMI. 25 to 29.9, you're overweight. And above 30, you're obesity. You're obese. And then we go through categories of obese type 1, type 2, type 3, right? Now, body fat percentage, essential fats for a female and a man should be, in this case, 10 to 13% for a female, 2 to 5% for a man. In athletes, for a female, you should be between 14 and 20%. In males, should be between 6 and 13%. If, in this case, you're fit, meaning that you do physical activity like going to the gym, running, swimming, bicycling, doing things like that, yoga, I know you play soccer, football, more into that type of weekend warrior type of thing, you should be between 21, 24% for a female, 14 to 17% for a male. The average person that doesn't really do a lot of physical activity, maybe goes to the gym 2 times, 3 times a week, specifically female should be between 25 and 31%, and male should be between 18 and 24%. Now, to consider men and females obese, females should be between 32% or more, and males should be above 25%. Okay? Now, here's a very good example for you guys. I have 2 females, same height, same weight, and then we have the same BMI, but the one on your left has more fat percentage. So guess which one is healthier? Obviously the one on your right, because she has less fat percentage. And we'll see what actually is produced with that extra fat that you have. Now, another good comparison done in a study on the NFL, and I think everybody knows what the NFL is, the National Football League in this case. I classified, or I give you a little bit of resume right there, which is position, height, body mass, percentage of body fat, and BMI. Now, running backs, they tend to be a little bit heavier set compared to wide receivers. This specific research was actually done on the Indianapolis Colts. Now, the average height for the running backs was 180 centimeters, and their average kilogram weight was 96.5. The average percentage body fat from all the running backs was 7.3. Now, if we go to the BMI between their height and weight, he would be nearly obese. So, despite the significant correlation between the variables of body composition and BMI, a purely associative value is of little help in determining magnitude because the composite of fat and lean tissue component integrity in the BMI measurements, meaning the BMI does not work. Okay, guys, the percentage of fat is what you want to follow. Now, visceral fats, for that person that had that extra percentage of body fat, that female that had that extra 5% of body fat, adipose secretion produces leptin, estrogen, resistant adenopectin, insulin growth factor type 1, tumor necrosis factor, alpha, now in this case. And for females, in this case, if you have that extra percentage of body fat, it's actually considered to be one big risk for breast cancer. The bigger the belly, the more estrogen that you're going to produce. Now, for males, there's a condition called gynecomastia, which is also increased tissue of, in this case, the breast area in males. So, If in this case you have more belly fats, that can actually make you produce more estrogen, and you are going to produce a little bit more of tissue in that breast area for males. And for females, prolactin is also increased. Okay, so a quick tip for you guys: conjugated linoleic acid reduces abdominal adipose tissue in obese middle-aged men with signs of metabolic syndrome. This was actually a randomized controlled trial, in 2001. So supplementing with CLA would actually help you to reduce adipose tissue. Now, inability to lose weight. We've heard a lot from a lot of people that they do diets from A to Z. They do training from A to Z also. They do go to the gym. They do all these type of trainings. They do all this type of supplements, and they're unable to lose weight. Why is it, right? We always have that question. We do have to actually cover a lot of areas before we lose weight. One first would be your blood sugar and your insulin. Seeing if in this case your body's actually processing blood sugar in an adequate manner, and how is your body expressing insulin production against that carbohydrate intake that you have. Now, leptin, which is a hormone that we're going to talk about in a moment, is naturally produced in your fat cells. So if you overproduce leptin, that can actually really go against you and impact your body in the wrong way, making you produce more fat cells than you want. Cortisol and adrenaline, I call them the cortisol and adrenaline monkeys, because if you guys have a lot of stress, if you have a lot of stress via your work, your family, anything like that comes down to emotional stress, that can really go against you and actually make you gain extra pounds around that belly area. Addicting foods, like I talked about, wheat, and also in this case dairy, MSG can also be a factor right there. How efficient is your body to detox everything that you're actually confronting? If in this case your body is able to detox properly, you do need to help your liver as much as possible by adding high antioxidant foods like vegetables to, in this case, help detox. Diets. Consider your diets. Standard American diet versus healthy diet, which is basically the diet that you're following. And if in this case your diet is the incorrect diet for you. Gut flora, and we'll talk a little bit about gut flora now. Current studies related to gut flora, specifically two type of strains now, firmicutes, specifically bacteroids, that help you to duplicate certain calories that come from, in this case, undigestible fibers. So even though that you are consuming healthy, adequate foods, those undigestible fibers that you're trying to eliminate, these bacteria are going to munch them up, they're going to eat them up, and they're going to produce a calorie. Now, everybody knows that if you consume too much calories that you don't really need, your body's going to actually make it into a fat molecule, into a triglyceride. So you need to balance all of those areas, your level of consumption of carbohydrates and how your body expresses via those carbohydrates, the amount of stress that you actually produce, the type of diet that you consume, the way that you detox, and how much, in this case, probiotics or fermented foods you're consuming to improve your gut flora. Now, to lose fats, you guys have to actually balance out all those areas right there. Your blood sugar imbalance, your adrenal dysfunction, your gut dysfunction, your thyroid dysfunction, hormone, mind, body, cellular dysfunction, brain neurotransmitter dysfunction, your immune system balance, and also your liver function. Doesn't really look easy, right, guys? Good thing is that our body has a domino effect. So if in this case you fix, let's say, our liver function, everything is interconnected. So we're actually going to go step by step by step so you actually balance out your body to be able to actually lose weight via fat only, not muscle mass. I want you guys to have the idea that when you're going to lose weight, you're going to lose fat percentage, not muscle mass percentage, okay? Now, insulin resistance, very simple to explain for you guys. When we eat too much carbohydrates, our pancreas produces insulin, and we see those little blue molecules right there that represent insulin. Exactly as our DNA blueprint tells us, but if the liver and muscle cells are already filled with glycogen, those cells start to become resistant to our call of insulin. So meaning in this case that if in this case you have those damaged areas where we see insulin-resistant cells, the more glucose that you have outside, the more insulin your pancreas is going to produce, because it's actually signaling that it has too much sugar. So the insulin receptor sites on the surface of those cells start to decrease in number as well as in efficiency. The term called downregulation, since the glucose can't get into the muscle or liver cells, it remains in the bloodstream. Now the pancreas senses that there's still too much toxic glucose in the blood, so it frenetically pumps out even more insulin, which causes insulin receptors on the surface of those cells to become even more resistant, because excess insulin is also toxic. Eventually the insulin helps the glucose find its way into our fat cells where it's stored as fat. Now this alongside with insulin resistance can lead you up to leptin resistance. Now, to understand that, the more sugar that you have outside, the more toxic that you're going to be. The more sugar that you have outside that doesn't go into the cell or into the liver, the more insulin that you're going to pop out. And the more insulin that you pop out, the more probability that you're going to produce fat cells. Now, via producing fat cells, as we saw in the past, you also produce leptin. And then once we produce more leptin, we produce leptin resistance. We'll actually explain that in a moment. Now, let's understand a little bit more insulin. It's a major rebuilding hormone. If we have too low insulin, our body's not going to get enough food. So you'll eat up your nutrients. Your body will go into almost like a starvation form. It helps to transport sugar into the cell, into the liver, into different type of cells, muscle cell, also things like that. If in this case you have too much insulin or too much sugar, you will rust. Just imagine your car being next to the beach, and with all that salt that's being actually produced, you're going to rust your car, right? For those that actually live close to the beach, you would know a little bit about that. Now, quick tip. In a study involving fructose-fed male Sprague-Dawley rats, administration of alpha-lipoic acid and coenzyme Q10 was found to suppress oxidative and nitrative stress, hyperinsulinemia, and insulin resistance. So if you guys are able to get a good quality alpha-lipoic and coenzyme Q10 supplement, and in this case you are pre-diabetic or are diabetic, I do recommend that you supplement yourself with those type of nutrients. Now, we already saw insulin resistance, and we're going to go on to leptin resistance, right? Leptin communicates to your brain, telling how much fat you need to store. It controls appetite, energy, and metabolic rate also. So when it's actually low, it means that your fuel reserves are actually running low, and it's time for food. So you actually get that appetite because it controls other hormones. When leptin levels rise during a meal, it means that the tank is full. So you stop eating automatically. When the brain doesn't really get that message, and leptin levels rise, you continue eating, and there's no full type of reaction in your brain. There's no signal that I'm full. So that then you create leptin resistance. Some people don't really make that leptin brain connection and that full sensation, and they continue to eat and eat and eat. That is when actually leptin is actually out of balance. And that's when we need the most of leptin to be in balance. So when leptin is actually out of balance, it really interferes with the ability of your body to burn fat for fuel or for energy. One of the number one signs of leptin being out of balance is that you overeat at night. An example for that would be that you ate dinner, let's say 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and you're still awake at 9 o'clock, and you think, probably I can eat a snack, probably I need something salty or sweet, and you go ahead and you eat that. If in this case you guys do have that type of craving, I would really recommend, in this case, follow recommendations that I'm going to give to you guys in a moment. Okay? Now, leptin, going back into it to give you a little bit more understanding, it's actually secreted by our fat cells that are actually containing in white adipose tissue. Now, it's actually essential for survival because it regulates other hormones like thyroid, adrenal, pancreatic, and sex hormones. It's also responsible for erratic behavior and cravings related to food. Okay, that extra craving that we have at night, that we say that we want to eat something sweet or salt after eating dinner, that is leptin having no communication with your brain. You need to actually create that communication by having certain habits that we're going to talk about in a moment. Now, quick tip. Calcium AAP has a direct influence on our brain signal that stimulates food intake while slowing down your metabolism. Higher calcium levels are also help to settle down excess production of adrenaline. Now, it has a really direct influence on a brain signal called the GUDI. Now, GUDI is a best friend of neuropeptide Y, which acts as stimulant food intake while slowing down your metabolism. GUDI is one of the many brain signals involved with prompting the appetite. So GUDI is a gene signal that amplifies the production of leptin from fat cells, and it blocks the ability of the hypothalamus gland to sense leptin in the brain, thus helping to promote the leptin resistance problem. Now, so like I said, higher calcium levels also help to settle down excess production of adrenaline. So calcium AAP, or calcium in this case that you consume, would be a necessary supplement that you guys can take if in this case you do have that symptom that I talked about, craving something after dinner. Okay. Now, what about stress? Stress is something that we do want to actually have as low as we can. Now, we know that stress activates the fight or flight mode of our sympathetic nervous system. Now, our sympathetic nervous system has a chemical response. Now, it releases endorphins to actually respond to pain. Now, it increases the heart rate, constricts blood vessels, causes hair to stand up on the end, enlarges bronchial tubes. It actually uses fatty acids and glycogen release for quick energy, and fibrogen is actually in the bloodstream to increase quality. Now, to do it simple, in this case, to explain in a simple manner, your body's actually getting prepared to fight or to run away from something that is causing danger to them. Now, when we actually go through surgery, we have a massive amount of cortisol being produced. And that's why a lot of people tend to lose weight, because cortisol is something that's going to degrade muscle mass to a point. That's why when, in this case, we actually are in stress, we overproduce cortisol and adrenaline. Now, adrenaline, we call it the fight or flight hormone, keeps your heart beating, right? It's essential for your heart to beat. Access to biochemicals so you can actually use them up as energy. It signals breakdown of old cells to make room for new cells. And like I say, too much adrenaline will actually waste you away. Too little adrenaline, you will not survive. So in this case, we have to have a balance with adrenaline. Now, high adrenaline, what are the symptoms? Agitation, anxiety, bladder urgency, blurry vision, burning feet, emotional intensity, excessive sweating, heartburn, heart palpitations. Now, if you guys have low adrenaline, most probable thing is allergies, asthma attack, flu-like symptoms, general aches and pains, headaches, increased susceptibility to infections. Insomnia is one of the main things, mental exhaustion, or in this case, foggy mind, and also shingle attacks. Now, that is basically because of your low immune system. Now, don't forget cortisol. We talked about, in this case, being two hormones that actually respond to fight or flight mode. And cortisol by itself causes a lot of symptoms and a lot of situations in the body that we don't want to actually have. If, in this case, you produce too much cortisol, the most probable thing is that you're going to develop high blood sugar levels, also high blood pressure, insomnia, hypothyroidism. You're actually going to produce poor digestion. You're going to decrease your immune function, and then a probable thing would be constipation. You're going to be more susceptible for infections, physical stress, in this case, poor nutrition, in this case, a lot of physical stress can lead on to, in this case, what is going to be high or elevated levels of cortisol, high blood sugar levels also, and chronic inflammation toxicity would lead you off onto having higher levels of what is, in this case, cortisol. Now, cortisol is essential. It's actually essential for blood pressure and water regulation. It also helps the liver to store glycogen and increase new sugar production. It mobilizes energy, mainly sugar, for your brain. Now, if your blood sugar drops, in this case, your body secretes more cortisol. It actually breaks down your structural and functional proteins that are converted by your liver into sugar for the brain. Also causes breakdown of fat into glycerol and fatty acids. Now, it protects brain fats. 90% of your brain is actually fat, so cholesterol and other fatty acids. It also controls inflammation. So, again, with cortisol and adrenaline, you need to be in balance, okay? Because if in this case you guys have too much stress from any of those areas, like poor nutrition, physical, psychological stress, or chronic inflammation, that would actually help you to break down muscle mass and actually increase your fat mass production. Now, quick tip for you guys, carnosine is a major part of the foundation of the relaxed reserves in the brain. When carnosine levels are proper, the brain can tolerate stress and stimulation. So when carnosine levels are lacking, stress-induced damage to brain cells and leaves the nerves in the excess adrenaline states. So it actually can damage your brain. So we want to actually have, obviously, a good amount of carnosine in our diet, or supplement yourself if in this case you have too much stress, kind of like in this case our zebra right there that's losing its stripes. You think that's actually stress. Now we have to acknowledge what is in this case the elephant in the room, and we're going to do one of the small recaps on this in this case. Now, to acknowledge this, we have to actually have control over our blood sugar, insulin, and leptin levels. Now, this comes down to how much carbohydrates one consumes. And when I say carbohydrates, I say those carbohydrates that are really more related onto the breakdown of higher content of molecules of sugar. So, example, grains. Example, root vegetables. Refined sugars in this case, kind of like table sugar, brown sugar. We can go on because there's a large list of that. So it all depends on how you break down. Now, your stress is one of the biggest things that is going to impede you of losing weight. There's many methods that actually help you to control your stress, and one of them is breathing, deep breathing that we actually can teach you down here at Sanoviv. But if in this case you connect with yourself at least 20 minutes of deep breathing every day, that would help to decrease stress. Eliminate inflammatory foods. Now, inflammatory foods are the most common food proteins or foods that we see in what is in this case processed foods, and I'll name 4 of them, which is going to be dairy products, which is going to be wheat or grains containing gluten in this case. It's going to be soy and corn. Now, I bet you guys that if you go today to the supermarkets and you get a processed food, any processed food that you want, I'll give you an example, canned soup, and you go and you turn around and you read the ingredients, see if you can find soy, wheat, corn, and dairy in it. And the most probable thing is that you are going to find all these food ingredients in one food. So the ideal thing is that you have a whole food diet, okay? Meaning that you have lots of vegetables, minimal amount of fruits, good quality or high quality protein in this case, and good essential fatty acids. Now, you do need to stimulate your lymphatic system. And the way that we actually are going to recommend this is by being active, okay? Not only helps to control, in this case, what is blood sugar levels, it also impacts your heart in a very good way, and it also helps your body to detox because you're stimulating your lymphatic system. Now, I do ask you guys to have a higher nutritional IQ, meaning that when you're going to go choose your foods at your supermarket, be smart about it. See your food as an investment, okay? See the food, how much nutrients is going to give you back to the money that you're investing in that food. Everybody goes and actually puts money into the stock market, right? For an example. And you put money onto the stock market and you expect that that money is going to duplicate or triplicate in a certain amount of time, right? Because the stock is going up. Now you expect to get something back from that initial investment, right? Something that's going to give you a little bit more, right? Just a little bit more. Now the same thing has to be applied with food. Look at food as an investment, like I say. Look at food as something that's going to give you back something that's actually very important, and that's energy for life. Okay? Now, common sense nutrition equals to high nutritional IQ. You want to get quality food, right? Whole food, like I explained, less of the ingredients. Obviously, the single foods that you can eat in this case, obviously one food that doesn't contain wheat, gluten, corn, or soy would be always better. Strive for natural as much as possible. Quantity, practice moderation, right? You don't have to finish your whole plate. Now, let your signal that goes from your stomach up to your brain get there. This is really essential because that signal takes about 20 minutes, guys. So you need to sit down, breathe, and chew your food properly so you can get that signal. Have a wide range of foods, and do eat for the season. It's not natural for you guys to eat a papaya when it's actually in the middle of December. Now, consider your ancestral heritage. I really encourage you guys to actually go into this. There's no one diet that actually is best for everyone. We are all human beings, but in this case, we are not the same. Biochemically, everybody is unique, and everybody comes from different areas of the world, which our ancestors have been exposed to different foods around the world, right? So you guys need to look at your grandparents, great-grandparents, what was the type of diet that they actually consumed, and that can actually impact your body in a very great way. Now, listen to your body. Now, this is one of the most important things. Example, take those 20 minutes, chew your food properly, and your body's going to listen to you, and it's going to actually tell you that it's actually full, and that's going to help you not to overeat, to get those extra calories or that extra energy. Now, you can also listen to your body to see what foods can cause inflammation. Inflammation would actually lead off to extra pounds. Now, if in this case you guys do have the common symptom of bloating, gas, abdominal pain, distension, anything like that, constipation, remove all the common offenders, like I said, gluten, dairy, soy, and corn. And the most powerful thing, I'll bet you guys, in a probable week or two, you're going to feel better, you're going to feel more energy, and you're going to drop pounds just by removing those 4 common food offenders. Okay? So let's get started. Like I said, listen to your body. Food sensitivities are more common today because processed foods basically overload your body with different proteins that are not supposed to be there. Omit the foods that you may be reactive to. Example, gluten, wheat, corn, soy, dairy, which are the top allergens. And the diet that I recommend to you guys is also the elimination diet, which is basically eliminating all those allergenic foods that we have right there listed. Now, if in this case you guys do have that common symptom that I told you about leptin specifically, that if you eat dinner, after 2 hours, you do have that specific craving for something sweet or salty, I do recommend that you follow these 5 rules of leptin. Now, never eat after dinner, okay? Anyone who cannot follow this rule has a significant problem with glucose metabolism, liver function, or leptin resistance. So I do ask of you guys that if in this case one of your goals is to lose weight, to control your body, to be able to be healthy, do not eat after dinner. Eat 3 meals a day, primarily, always based on protein, specifically in the morning. Adding protein in the morning actually brings up your metabolism by 40% and actually makes you burn more energy just by eating protein in the morning. Do not eat large meals, which obviously is going to take you to extra calories that you don't want, and also reduce the amount of empty carbohydrates that you consume. Remember, food is an investment, guys. Always look at it as an investment. Now, a quick tip. It was recently discovered that taking a nutrient, acetyl L-carnitine, before bed can actually help the hypothalamus gland stimulate the production of growth hormone during sleep. If you sleep adequately, you would gain muscle mass and you would lose percentage of body fat. If you sleep correctly, this means that if you sleep at least 7 to 9 hours on a daily basis, your body's going to be able to lose weight while you're sleeping, okay? ALC enhances the release of growth hormone as well as it prevents hormonal depletion from stress, okay? ALC helps also to offset the effect of stress that induces sleep problems. In a landmark study, ALC was found to help clear leptin resistance in the brain, Also, ALC can actually help the brain to correctly sense the true amount of leptin, thus overcoming leptin resistance. Now, it can also metabolize stuck cholesterol out of your brain, thereby helping those cells to be more normal and functional. So acetyl L-carnitine can actually help you not only in this case to make you produce a little bit more muscle mass and actually help you lose fat mass while asleep. It also would help you to, in this case, control leptin and have a better leptin signal onto your brain. Now, another recommendation would be to activate yourself. Now, according to the CDC, you have to do 2 hours and 30 minutes a week of physical activity to actually have a good health. This means 75 minutes of vigorous, intensive aerobic activity and 30 minutes of moderate intensive aerobic activity. This basically is equivalent to a mix of two of each in the week. That is only 30 minutes a day, guys. Now, doesn't mean that you guys need to go to the gym or sign up to a gym. No, my recommendation would be you guys just move. Just make your body move. Whichever you guys like, dancing, swimming, biking, gardening, whatever makes your body move, just for 30 minutes, that would actually help your body be more active, be more metabolically active to actually lose more energy, because your body's going to lose, it's going to consume more energy via the fat storage, so your body's going to actually be able to lose weight by itself, okay? Now, next thing would be relax and meditate to actually control those cortisol and adrenaline monkeys behind your back. In a randomized controlled trial involving 103 subjects with established stable coronary heart disease, adherence to a program of transcendental meditation for a period of 16 weeks was found to improve components of the metabolic syndrome, which increase the risk of CHD, or in this case, coronary heart disease. Specific improvements were found in blood pressure, insulin resistance, and cardiac autonomic system activity. Now, if you guys do meditation, deep breathing meditation in this case, just relaxing, sitting down, once you wake up or once you're going to bed, not only is it going to help you to control all these specific markers like blood pressure, insulin resistance, and cardiac autonomic system activity, but also it's going to help you to sleep better and to clear out things of your brain that probably you haven't cleared out throughout the day. More info for you guys. Book recommendations. Now, short spine principle really goes on to cortisol and adrenaline function. Now, if you guys want to have a little bit more into depth to information about, in this case, your ancestral type of diet, I do really recommend the Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston Price, and actually have a picture of what people used to consume 60 to 70 years ago and how healthy they were just by eating what Mother Nature gave them. The paleo diets, in this case from Lauren Cordain, actually gives you a very good perspective of what grains really do onto your body, and if in this case grains are essential for your body. I do recommend that you guys go into that book. If you haven't read this book, which a lot of people have read it already, I do recommend that you go through it again. Mastering Leptin by, in this case, Byron Richards. Very interesting book on how leptin actually really functions on your body. I do recommend it if you want to go a little bit more into depth into, in this case, leptin function. Now, how can Sanoviv help you? We have various programs that you guys can actually access through Sanoviv.com. You can talk to any of our reps via the website that has a little bit of a messenger right there. And actually, there's various programs that can actually help you detox, kind of kickstart your weight loss. If in this case you guys want to actually achieve a certain goal, we can actually build a program based on supplementation, based on blood chemistry, based on dietary habits, and based on your stress levels that you currently have, and kind of like help you to, in this case, kickstart that weight loss project that you probably will have for this year. Now, I will thank you guys for attending this webinar. We're going to start our questions right now. I'm going to open up a little bit of our program right here to just get a little bit of the question things here. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay. Florence Barrera. I have two. Hola, Florence. Hope you're doing well. There are two questions discussed. That's not me, but I think for sauerkrauts. Okay. And Florence Barrera is asking about sauerkrauts and sandwich bread out of almond and coconut flour. May I email them? Yes. Okay. So yes, you can email them to me via, in this case, to Bruno's email at followup@sanoviv.com. Now, sauerkrauts is actually fermented cabbage that everybody would actually benefit from it. In this case, sauerkraut is actually easy to do. You guys can actually produce it at home. It takes about 5 days. There's actually a very good book that I do recommend by Sandra Katz. It's called Wild Fermentation, which I do recommend to you guys. You can actually Google it. It's called Wild Fermentation, and it actually teaches you with the 101 of fermenting. Now, fermenting would add good beneficial bacteria onto your gut, like I said. Improving your gut flora not only helps you to reduce those bacteroids and firmicutes that would actually help you to duplicate the amount of calories, but also would actually strengthen your immune system. So just having sauerkraut or probiotics or fermented foods, in this case, can actually help you. Now, that paleo bread that you're talking about is actually an excellent source of a substitute for those that want to actually continue to eat something of a bread. You know, we do have recipes for you. If you guys want to have a recipe for paleo bread, you guys can email us at followup@sanoviv.com, and we'll be more than happy to send you any of those recipes that we have. Let's see, another question. Just a moment. Okay, let's move on to the other question. Someone I know, this is by June Grain. Someone I know wants to fast to try and lose weight. What are the dangers of that? Now, it all depends on the type of fasting. If there's liquid fasting and the intention of the fasting is only for losing weight or for detox, I'll only recommend it for a detox. There's various programs that you can use. And a liquid fast that adds, in this case, green juice, that adds homemade apple juice for the malic acid, that adds, in this case, apple cider vinegar, that adds, in this case, bentonite clay, that's fiber, that helps to basically help you clean out what is, in this case, your liver, your gallbladder, also, in this case, your colon. Now, that is only one part of many things that you have to do to actually lose weight. Now, that can be a start. You guys can do a cleanse for, let's say, a period of 5 to 15 days of basically just liquid fasting with all of these things to actually help you to just detox your body. But it's very important that you guys don't do any physical activity while you're doing that, because you're not really getting all the energy that your body requires. I do recommend that while you're doing that, I would prefer that you probably use methods of stimulating the lymphatic system, like infrared sauna, dry brushing, things like that. Now, one of the dangers of that is losing too much muscle mass. One of those dangers. The other thing is, if in this case your body's not ready, you're also going to be losing a lot of nutrients that wouldn't be specifically helpful for, in this case, your body. Losing a lot of electrolytes and other nutrients that you probably would actually have a benefit from. Now, Oz, what are the best sources of protein? Now, you do have high-quality animal protein. It all depends if you're vegan or not vegan. Now, the type of you can ask me again, Oz, but is this a protein question on a protein powder question, or on a source of, in this case, food source of protein? You can ask me again, Oz. And yes, Florence Barra, that is my email. Now, canola oil, I do not recommend it. Very processed. In this case, I just don't recommend it in this case. Oz, how do we get protein? Now, protein in this case comes from two sources, vegetarian source and animal protein. Obviously, any good cuts, sorry, in this case, of clean animal protein, grass-fed, in this case, no hormones, no antibiotics, would be a good quality cut. Beans, lentils, nuts and seeds can give you also a good amount of protein. Quinoa, which actually is not a grain, is actually considered more of a seed, can also give you very good quality of vegetarian protein. Now, which foods produce carnosine? Very good, Florence. Animal products will always be the highest quality that you can get to get a good source of carnosine from them. Okay, gracias, hear you, very good. Okay, just moving down onto the questions. Okay, so Oz, your question is gut health, right? Gut health, which started at Sanoviv, really helped me with side effects of prednisone as I slowly get off of it. Probiotics, definitely Oz now. Just remaining committed to what is in this case your program now, based on what your doctor recommended and what the nutrition department recommended, is actually something that you would actually need to continue doing to actually have a improved gut function. This is just one of the first steps. Now, it does really take about maybe 6 to a year to really improve the gut, depending on how much damage you have via food allergens, medication, things like that, and the level of stress that you have. So, I do ask you to remain committed to what you're doing. Okay. Thank you, Barbara. Why is corn not considered paleo? Because essentially it's actually considered a grain, and also corn by itself has certain type of peptides that can actually mimic gluten in your system. We do have a test down here at Sanoviv that actually tests your reaction against that. So that's why in reality it's not really in the paleo diet, because it's actually really considered almost a grain, even though it's actually gathered easier than potatoes. Hi, Lisa Joe, Reset Challenge winner 2002 from New Zealand. During my stay at Sanoviv, the grand prize, I lost 8 pounds at Sanoviv eating the delicious, yummy, healthy food. Will this webinar be posted for us to access to review again? Yes, of course. And would I be able to have a PDF of your presentation slides to be emailed to me? Yes. I do ask you guys, if you want this presentation, do email Bruno at followup@sanoviv.com, and I'll forward this presentation on a PDF form for you guys. Thank you for the invitation. Hopefully, I will also like to go to New Zealand. So no protein in diet, including meats. Meaning vegetarians. Probably you would like to introduce, in this case, quinoa. Flax seeds, nuts and seeds. In this case, general nuts and seeds. Example, like you can introduce almonds. You can introduce almond butter also. Protein powders can be a good source of protein. Come down to pea protein, sunflower protein, rice protein. Now, you want to be careful with rice protein, because it's actually being labeled as high content of lead. So you would need to actually get a very specific type of protein if you're in the U.S. market. Okay, now so since dairy and soy and dairy are out, alternate source of protein for you. Again, same protein, as like I said, nuts and seeds, almond, preferably in this case. Rice protein, pea protein powder, things like that can be an option for you. Okay, Oz. And now, Vicky, if someone has IBS, okay, so I think it would be Wendy because I can't see really your full name. If someone has IBS, would the elimination and basic rules of avoiding common food allergens be helpful? Yes, in a very great manner, Wendy. I would really recommend to follow that type of diet, which is the elimination diet for anybody that has any gut problems, from IBS to Crohn's to celiac. Anybody that has IBS or just common bloating in guts, I would recommend to follow that type of diet. What about organic corn? No, Florence. No, still the same. Now, okay, Jasmine, about GMO-free soy, you do have to be very specific about that. Even though it's GMO free and it's organic in this case, and the product by itself, let's say you buy the whole seed contains a lot of chemicals that actually would make your body go into different type of situations. Example, it contains goitrogenic molecules. It contains phytoestrogenic molecules. It contains phytic acid, things like that that would contribute to imbalance of hormones and also malabsorption of nutrients. Now, it's very different that you get, in this case, fermented soy, like miso and tempeh, from non-genetically modified seeds. Very, very different. Now, if in this case you get the fermented product, you can happily consume that, no problem at all, because that's already processed by fermentation, so that would make it very easy to digest, very accessible for your gut to get all the nutrients that you actually need from, in this case, the seed. Okay, Oz, my email would be, in this case, follow-up at sanoviv.com. Follow-up at sanoviv.com. Okay, again, follow-up at sanoviv.com. Thank you, Lisa. Hope to see you down over here again. Linda, most of them are not. Most of the soy products that you find are just the fraction, the protein part of what it is soy. Example, the only fermented product that you're going to find as a protein powder is, I think if I'm not correct, it's rice protein, and brand name is Sun Warrior Rice Protein. Other than that, I don't really know about any other soy product that would be fermented. Okay. Okay. Let me go up and see which other questions you guys have. Thank you, Jay. Okay, when I think it would be Wendy. Now you have a question on what would be the best approach to a binge eating problem. Now you do want to assess now the problem that you or that person probably would have on coming onto insulin and cortisol function. Now, if in this case your body drops with too much insulin, the natural response to that is to actually put more energy into your body. So I would really recommend in this case to have the proper assessment onto seeing your blood sugar levels, your insulin levels, and your cortisol levels. And after that, now you can start a program onto supplementation and also diet to help control what is in this case those type of symptoms like binge eating. Okay, any other questions? Last question I have is from Linda. That's about it, guys. Okay, if in this case you guys have any other question, I do ask of you guys to email Bruno. Bruno Cortez is a gentleman that is actually in our follow-up department. You can email him at followup@sanoviv.com, and we'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions and doubts that you guys will have. I do appreciate you guys coming in and hearing our lecture today. I hope you like it, and if in this case, again, if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. You guys have a good afternoon.